The Gospel of Matthew, the first book in the New Testament, presents Jesus as the promised Messiah, the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies, and the King of the Jews. Spanning 28 chapters, it intricately weaves Jesus' teachings, miracles, and ultimate sacrifice, emphasizing his divine authority and the coming of God's kingdom. Chapters 1-4. The King's arrival. Matthew begins with Jesus' genealogy, linking him to Abraham and King David, proving his rightful place as the Messiah. The birth of Jesus is marked by divine signs. An angel announces his arrival, and wise men from the east come to worship him. King Herod, threatened by Jesus, orders the massacre of infants, forcing Joseph and Mary to flee to Egypt. After their return, Jesus grows up in Nazareth. Later, John the Baptist prepares the way, baptizing Jesus, who is then led into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan. He resists, demonstrating his authority over evil. Chapters 5-7. The Sermon on the Mount. Jesus' most famous sermon outlines the principles of God's kingdom. He introduces the Beatitudes, blessings for the meek, merciful, and pure in heart, teaches about prayer, the Lord's Prayer, and calls for genuine righteousness that surpasses religious hypocrisy. He urges his followers to build their lives on the solid foundation of his words. Chapters 8-10. Miracles and the 12 Apostles. Jesus heals the sick, calms storms, casts out demons, and even raises the dead, displaying his power over nature, disease, and the spiritual realm. He calls 12 disciples and sends them out to preach, warning them of persecution but promising divine help. Chapters 11-13. Parables of the Kingdom. John the Baptist questions Jesus' identity, but Jesus reassures him that he is the Messiah. The Pharisees oppose Jesus, accusing him of working through Satan. Jesus responds with parables, the sower, the mustard seed, and the hidden treasure, explaining the nature of God's growing kingdom. Chapters 14-18. Power, teaching, and forgiveness. Jesus feeds 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish, walks on water, and rebukes the Pharisees for their empty traditions. He reveals to his disciples that he must suffer and die. He takes Peter, James, and John up a mountain and is transfigured in radiant glory. He teaches about humility, faith, and the necessity of forgiving others. Chapters 19-25. Confrontations and End Times. Jesus teaches about marriage, wealth, and the cost of following him. He triumphantly enters Jerusalem, cleanses the temple, and debates the religious leaders, exposing their hypocrisy. He prophesies the destruction of the temple and describes signs of the end times, urging vigilance and faithfulness. Chapters 26-28. The Passion and Resurrection. Jesus shares the Last Supper, prays in Gethsemane, and is betrayed by Judas. He endures a rigged trial, is condemned by Pontius Pilate, and is crucified. 3 days later, he rises from the dead, appearing to his disciples and commissioning them to spread the gospel to all nations. The Gospel of Matthew ends with the Great Commission: go and make disciples of all nations. Jesus, the risen King, assures his followers, I am with you always, to the very end of the age.